Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm. And today we carry on our series, and if you guys remember, what we did in the last episode is that we have successfully created our inventory open and close widget here. Now what I would like to do here today is that I would like to create the function that every time I pick an item, it reloads here. So I don't want to have to, I want to be able to grab the item and make sure the item reloads automatically. And to do that, it's very easy, but let's change a couple of things. So let's get started. So first thing we need to do is that here is farm. So I'm just gonna go to the UI inventory. I'm just gonna add a different color here. I'm just gonna put green or something. For now, I'm just gonna leave it right there. We need to understand when do we open the inventory. And we are calling that information every time we call this API start or reload the inventory. We should be a little bit careful how much stuff do we call it, how many times do we call this, because literally it will loop all the inventory data and we will call all the data here. So it may be a little bit of a problem for us to load all this data. So let's just double check how many times I'm calling this. So I'm just gonna do a print. If I go back, open, close, open, that's fine. If I drag and drop, it doesn't do much, which is fine. So we are only calling once, which is great. Exactly what we're looking for. Now let's call and let's open up this. Let's first fix this bug here, because we have a bug here that I'm just gonna show you the bug. So if I move that, it keeps adding new items all the time. We don't want that to happen, all right? So what happened is that because we have this on the inventory, we have this API start reload item. So I can do just do a print here just to show how does that work. So if I get all the items, right, and then I drag this one here, just one there, so it keeps duplicating the item, but it's not being called right here, right? So let's check where is this thing being called. So we have the widget, which will have the base window layout. So let's just find the references, find by name. So you got this one right here. And then we have another one right here. So every time we move, we call this list. Let's have a look on how the list is behaving. I think the problem is the list, because every time we do the construct, it's in essence trying to, filter the data, load the data, and all that stuff. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to transfer this from an event, custom event called API load or reload items. And then I'm going to do the same for the grid, but I'm just going to make sure this is like a standard. So multicast. What I can actually do here, I'm trying to think here in the best way of doing this, because we have the grid and the list. This is opportunity for us to call a parent class, right? So what I can do here is that I can create here a widget blueprint, and I'm going to call this WBP, and I'm going to call base inventory display list, all right? Look how cool is this thing. So what we can do is that on the inventory list, we're going to go back to the class settings. We're just going to go and call this the parent one that we just created. I'm also going to do the same for the grid, okay? Because guys, I don't want to have to repeat myself all the time, because every time you repeat yourself, it means that it is more a liability to take care of your code in the future. It makes it harder to understand what's going on. So now that I have here the inventory, now do I have an option to move this to the parent? I don't, but what I can do here, what I could do here in theory is this. I can create here, I'm going to collapse this stuff within a function, collapse to a function, and this function is going to be fn load inventory items, right? Now what I'm gonna do is I can collapse to a function convert. What I can do here is that I also am gonna copy this API, this function here. I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna go back to the parent, and here I'm gonna create a custom event on the graph. Okay, I'm just gonna close all this stuff. Custom event API load or reload items. And now, if I go back to the list, I'm gonna send this function to the parent class. Yes. No. What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Yes. Move to the parent class. No, I don't want to delete it. Okay, that's fine. I guess that's fine. Anyway, now we're gonna compile and save. That's fine. So it's gonna complain that say, oh, we don't have the widget, blah blah blah. Oh, we don't have certain items. Don't worry. What we're gonna do here is that we're gonna go back to the list of the inventory, and we're also gonna move to the parent, and we're also gonna move this one to the parent. No, actually no. So the one we want to move to the parent here is just the. It's gonna compile and save here. It's just the widget. Just move that one to the parent. All right. I'm going to compile and save. That's it. So we shouldn't have more errors. Now, on the parent one, all you got to do is just call that function, right? And in here, I'm just going to update it to don't do anything. Just do onCompleted, just return. Doesn't do anything. We can compile and save this stuff, and that's it. So that's all you got to do for this one right now. Now, here is the trick. Now, what we can actually do here is that we are gonna basically delete all this stuff, a part of this, right? And now I'm gonna go back to my inventory, and here, as you can see, I have all these items and all the information. Now, what I would like to do is to call a dynamic widget, right? I want to call, let's say, the parent widget that will do this stuff for us. I probably should still keep this information here, but what I can do is that in here, instead of calling the list, I am just going to go back to the type. I'm going to call this WBP base inventory display list, which is the base one that we're using. We're going to refresh, right click and refresh node. Nothing realistically should change. Okay, nothing should change very much. Now what we're doing is the content of the widget, we are adding whatever is this, so this is fine. That's perfectly okay. But what we need to do now is that we need to handle that logic right here, right? We could handle this on the construct, but I think for this, I would like to put on the start or reload inventory. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to delete, I'm going to actually not delete this, but for now, I'm just going to call, I'm going to promote to a variable, call the, let's say, item list ref, right? Make sure that's public, just in case we need to do something with that data. I'm going to plug right here, and then the content will be that, and I'm going to put it right there. Now, look how cool is it. We can go to the parent here, and we can just call that API load or reload items for both grid and the list. And then everything should work exactly the same, no hassle to change. So what we can do now is just that we get, for example, this is going to be the, I'm just going to put this inside UI items or items list, just so we know more or less what it is. And then I can just call this information right there. Okay. Here's actually where it'll reload the items. And now you probably ask, okay, but how can I now do that logic inside the list and the grid? Because they have different logics, right? I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to delete this stuff on the list inventory because I don't need them right now. And now what I need, I'm going to override the function, fn, the load inventory items. So what I can do here is that for the parents, right, we are doing this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back here on the child. I'm going to delete whatever the parent's doing because I don't need that information. Right, so now what we do here on the list, we are not calling the parent anymore. So we're doing the old logic that we had, right? And here we also, let me just double check. Yeah, we have this stuff here, so we can go back to the list and paste it right there. So we got the items here to do the for each loop, right? So we're gonna just do a for each loop, and we put it right there. Now what we do is that we break the item, we put it right here, and we add the item right there. Actually, it's not now. It needs to be the reference of here. And that's pretty much everything that we need to do, guys. So we got to do here. So now every time I call the inventory, so I go back here. This is the WP inventory. And we can maybe call this when we, so this will load all the items to the inventory. All right, so this is will load all the data all the time. So this is will load the data, which is being called right now on the base. So it's called, it called this information, it goes here and say, okay, now that I have the reference, I'm gonna store the reference, and then I'm gonna say, okay, what mode you are. So I'm using the list. Okay, so now that you're using the list, you're gonna call this base, not the base one. I think we're looking for, this is the base. We're looking for the list, right? So we're gonna plug the list right here, compile and save that. Refresh the nodes. So you're calling the list, but remember the list, it has the same type as the base one. So what we can do here on the list ref is that it has the same type, that's fine. And then what we do is that we're adding this list to the child of the layout of my widget, which is inside this base here. And then I'm saying, okay, now can you please load the data? Because we already load all the information in the inventory. And then what happens is that we go back here, we call API load or reload items. So this will load all the items for the base class, and will apply to the child. All right. And now what happened is, because we have extended from this class on the list, we can override the behavior of this function to do whatever we want. In this case, display as a list. Now let's check if this is going to work. So it still has a problem with this, but it should still work exactly how it was before. But now notice that we don't have the annoying bug anymore, right? Now we do have to do one thing here, which is basically when I get, for example, I have the item and I get the information, it's not reloading, right? It's only when I open and close. I mean, it's not really doing anything. It's just, it doesn't do that stuff. So we need to basically call that information to reload the data multiple times, or every time there is like an action that involves reloading the inventory. Because if you see here, we only call that data, I think, just once. So we open up, we call that once. But as you can see, it's not loading that information anymore. So it goes back here. So let me see if we can fix it. So we go back here, we do that, and here we add to the parent. So we create a new widget and we reload the items. So let me double check if this is being called multiple times. So hello, it is being called multiple times. So it's being called multiple times, but it's not loading the data. That's fine. Now let's check what's going on here. So it's, oh yeah, that's the base one, sorry. We need to go back to the list. Are we calling this multiple times as well? Let's check. If I go back, I have 2 items, but if I go back here and yeah, I only have 1. This is because a very simple thing that's happening here is because on the inventory here, we need to remove this item from the parent if valid. The reason why is because we are adding a new one and attaching to the list, but it's not really displaying here. So what we can do here is that we're going to get the list reference, And if it's valid, it's valid. We want to make sure, if it's not valid, we don't care. We just go straight away to the execution. But if it's valid, we just want to make sure that we remove from the parent, because we want a fresh widget. Not all the time, but like we want a fresh widgets to be able to see the new item. So for example, now if I get open up, nothing. On apple, to apple, sword, and everything. And look at that. Now we still have one issue to fix, which is that if I have the inventory open, get the item, nothing open. It's just when I open up. So we need to figure out a way to call this function here multiple times. So what we're going to do here is that's a very easy and simple thing to do as well. It's just that keep in mind that this needs to be called on the client. So what we're going to do here is that I'm going to go back to the inventory item here, and we have a function that every time we have the inventory item, so I'm just going to open up here. Every time we add the inventory item, we have to do certain actions, right? So in this case, we destroy the actor, we add the item. Here as well, we do all the crazy logic that we have to change in a sec. So what I would like to do here is that I just want to basically create, I'm just going to create here a custom event. Oh, not that. I'm going to create a custom event. I'm going to call this API reload inventory. The reason why I'm going to be calling this reload inventory, and this must run on the client because we are accessing widget stuff, so it only runs on the client. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to get an inventory, and we're going to get the, I think it's called API start or API reload start. No, API start. Which one's the name again? Yeah, start reload inventory. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to get the inventory ref, and then in here I'm just going to call the API start or a reload, API reload inventory. Call it right down. This is going to be called the reload or update all the inventory widgets, right? Inventory widgets, right? This I'm gonna make sure it's purple or like a color here just to make sure we know what it is. Now what happened, the next thing is that we just need to, oh, don't know what happened there. We just need to call this actor right here. So every time this happens, so if the item has been added, we want to call this, right? And also the same when the item, just create a branch, I guess. Well, we don't have this logic yet. I'm just going to call it for now. But anyway, now, if we did everything right, we should, oh, infinite loop detected. Let's check why is that doing that loop. So let's go back. It keeps doing that loop. BPC API. Oh, no. That's not when the inventory starts. No, I think I'm doing something wrong here. Wait. Let me close all this stuff. Let me start it again. So, inventory items. We call the API reload, which calls this. Oh, they have the same name. I see. So, reload inventory data. Maybe we can just call data. Sorry. Of course, guys. This is sorry. I didn't realize this actually. Notice that I am calling myself because I'm getting the inventory reference. What I want is get the WBP. No, from here how do we call this stuff again? It's just called WBP inventory. That's what we want. We want to get this data and then API start reload inventory. That's it. And then why do we need the inventory widget again? Oh yeah, that needs to be, okay, that's fine. So the widget here that needs to be added is just the parent. So in this case, this guy here. And now what happens is that if I press play, I may need to refactor this, by the way, but anyway, if I go back here, get the item. So I got the item, go here, go there. And as you can see, things are being added properly. Just one thing I would like to change. It's the, I wouldn't like to make this required, but I think for now it's fine, because when we start to play with the NPC, or like if you have a vendor or something, we will need this information to take into consideration. Well, once again, guys, thank you very much for watching. As you can see here, the tutorial, the item looks quite cool. The inventory looks really nice now. What we're going to be doing the next one is that we're going to hook up this close button, and then we're going to start to do the actions here. Maybe I can even go to the drag and drop action. But what I'm going to do here is that I want to make sure that when I right click on the item, I display a little context menu saying use or delete or drop, or, you know, we're going to do the delete function, and then we can maybe create all those context menus. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I see you guys in the next one.